What if the man you loved, the father of your children, was secretly plotting to destroy you? Rebecca thought she had it all. A happy marriage, a beautiful daughter, and another baby on the way. Until one day her husband stood in court and called her mentally unstable. But here's the twist. He had faked everything. The text, the evidence, even her reality. Just when all hope seemed lost, someone unexpected walked through the courtroom doors. Her billionaire ex-husband, carrying a proof that could change everything. This is not just a story about betrayal. It's about survival, justice, and the kind of love that never really dies. So stay till the end, because trust me, you won't believe how it all turns out. And hey, if you love stories full of shocking twists and emotional comebacks, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us bring you more stories that'll keep you on the edge of your seat. Your Honor, my client's wife is mentally unstable. The courtroom tilted. Rebecca Walsh's hands went to her belly, 6 months swollen with Derek's second child. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, too bright, too loud. Everything felt wrong. She sat at the defendant's table wearing a navy maternity dress she'd pressed 3 times that morning. Her lawyer, Grace Sullivan, had told her to look put together, professional, like a woman who deserved to keep her daughter. But Derek's lawyer, Howard Pierce, was painting a different picture entirely. Mrs. Thompson has exhibited erratic behavior for months, Pierce continued. He was 50-something with silver hair and a voice like gravel. Text messages threatening my client, volatile mood swings, accusations of infidelity with no basis in reality. Rebecca's throat closed. She wanted to stand up, to scream that it was all lies, but Grace's hand pressed her shoulder. Stay quiet. Let me handle this. Derek sat across the aisle in his best suit, charcoal gray, the one she'd helped him pick out for his sister's wedding. He wouldn't look at her, kept his eyes on the judge, his expression carefully neutral. Concerned husband. Worried father. The baby kicked. Hard. Rebecca put her hand there, fingers spread over the tight drum of her stomach. She was 6 months pregnant. They'd planned this baby together. 3 months ago, Derek had picked the nursery paint. Soft yellow, like sunshine, he'd said. Now he was trying to take Lily away. These text messages, Pierce said, approaching the bench with a tablet. I'd like to enter them into evidence, Your Honor. Judge Morrison, a woman in her 60s with sharp eyes and reading glasses on a chain, took the tablet. She scrolled. Her expression didn't change. Rebecca's heart hammered. She leaned toward Grace. What text messages? Grace's jaw was tight. I don't know. He didn't disclose these in discovery. But I know. Oh, just stay calm. The judge looked up. Mr. Pierce, when were these messages sent? Over the past 3 months, Your Honor. My client has been documenting Mrs. Thompson's increasingly unstable behavior. Rebecca's vision blurred at the edges. 3 months. That was right after she'd found the burner phone in Derek's gym bag, right after she'd started asking questions. The gallery behind them whispered. Rebecca didn't turn around, but she felt their eyes, judging, pitying, poor man, dealing with a crazy pregnant wife. Judge Morrison handed the tablet to her clerk. Mrs. Sullivan, you'll have time to review these during our afternoon session. For now, Mr. Pierce, continue with your opening statement. Pierce smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. Your Honor, my client Derek Thompson is a devoted father to 5-year-old Lily. He's been her primary caregiver since marrying Mrs. Thompson 3 years ago. He's the one who makes her breakfast, takes her to school, helps with homework. Miss Thompson, meanwhile, has become increasingly withdrawn and paranoid. Rebecca smoothed her dress over her belly. Again. She couldn't stop. Her hands were shaking. Lock. She checked her phone under the table. Nothing. Unlock. No messages from her mother, from her best friend Jenna. Lock. Mr. Thompson is here today, Pierce said, not out of malice, but out of genuine fear for his stepdaughter's safety and for his unborn child. That did it. Rebecca stood. The chair scraped against the floor. Your Honor, Grace pulled her down, hard. Rebecca, don't. But the damage was done. The gallery murmured louder. The judge frowned. Mrs. Thompson, Judge Morrison said, her voice sharp, you'll have your turn to speak. Sit down. Rebecca sat. Tears burned behind her eyes. Don't cry. Don't give them ammunition. But one tear escaped, then another. She wiped them away quickly, but Pierce had already seen. His slight smile said everything. Perfect. The morning session crawled forward. Pierce called his first witness, Derek's mother, Patricia Thompson. She wore pearls and a cream blazer and dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. "My son has tried so hard," Patricia said, her voice trembling. "But Rebecca has changed. She accuses him of terrible things. She's isolated herself from friends and family. I'm worried about my granddaughter." Lies, all lies. But Patricia delivered them perfectly, the concerned grandmother, the worried matriarch. Grace cross-examined, but there wasn't much to work with. Grandmother worries about grandchild. What jury wouldn't sympathize? By the time Judge Morrison called for the lunch recess, Rebecca felt hollowed out. Empty. "We need to talk," Grace said, gathering her files. "Those text messages, I never sent them." "I believe you, but they came from your phone number. We need to figure out how." Rebecca followed Grace into the hallway. The courthouse was old, with marble floors and high ceilings that made every sound echo. People streamed past, lawyers, defendants, families caught in their own dramas. Grace found an empty conference room. "Sit. Tell me everything about your phone." Rebecca sat in the hard plastic chair. The baby kicked again, constant now, like it could sense her stress. "What do you mean?" "Your phone. Has Derek ever had access to it?" "He's my husband. Of course he's had access." Grace pulled out her own phone, started typing notes. "Specifically, has he ever had extended time alone with it?" Rebecca thought back. 6 months ago, Derek suggesting they should be on the same phone plan. "Save money," he'd said, "makes things easier." "He switched us to a family plan," Rebecca said slowly. 6 months ago, he said he needed my phone for a few hours to transfer everything." Grace stopped typing, looked up. "He had your phone alone for hours?" "Yes." He said it was complicated. Account transfers, something about backing everything up first. Jesus. Grace rubbed her temples. "Rebecca, do you understand what phone cloning is?" "Like copying?" "Exactly like copying. With the right equipment, someone can create a duplicate of your phone, same number, same account, everything. They can send texts, make calls, all from what looks like your phone, but it is." The room felt too small. Rebecca couldn't breathe. "But why would Derek?" "Because he's been planning this. The pregnancy, the phone access, the isolation from your friends and family. This isn't spontaneous, this is calculated." Rebecca put both hands on her belly. The baby was quiet now, like it was listening. "I don't understand. We planned this baby. He wanted another child." "Did he? Or did he convince you that you both wanted it?" The truth hit like cold water. Derek had suggested the pregnancy, right after she'd started asking about his late nights at work. Right after she'd found his phone on silent, tucked in his gym bag. He'd said another baby would bring them closer. Fix things. "I need to use the restroom," Rebecca said. "We have 20 minutes before we're back in session." Rebecca didn't wait for permission. She left the conference room, found the women's bathroom at the end of the hall. 3 stalls, fluorescent lighting, the smell of industrial soap. She locked herself in the middle stall, sat on the closed toilet, tried to breathe. The door opened, heels clicked on tile. 2 women, voices echoing off porcelain. "Did you see the pregnant one?" The unstable wife? God, that poor man. "I know, trying to take care of a child with someone like that. And she's pregnant again. Can you imagine?" Rebecca sat perfectly still, held her breath. The women continued washing their hands, fixing their makeup, gossiping. They didn't know she was there, didn't know she could hear every word. Finally, they left. Rebecca counted to 10, 20, 30. Then she stood, left the stall, looked at herself in the mirror. She looked terrible. Face pale, circles under her eyes, hair coming loose from the bun she'd pinned that morning. She looked exactly like what Derek wanted her to look like. Unstable, fragile, crazy. She washed her hands. The soap was pink and smelled like fake flowers. The water was too cold. Everything felt surreal, like she was watching herself from outside her body. The baby kicked. "I know," she whispered to her belly. "I'm scared too." Back in the hallway, Grace was waiting. Ready? No, but does it matter? They returned to the courtroom. Derek was already seated with Pierce, both men in quiet conversation. Derek glanced up as Rebecca entered. For just a moment, their eyes met. He looked away first. Judge Morrison took the bench. All rise. The afternoon session began with the text messages. Grace had reviewed them during lunch. 27 messages sent from Rebecca's number over 3 months. Threatening Derek, accusing him of affairs, saying she'd take Lily and disappear. Rebecca had sent exactly none of them. Mrs. Sullivan, the judge said, your response? Grace stood. Your Honor, my client maintains she never sent these messages. We'd like to request a forensic examination of both parties' phones. Pierce objected immediately. Your Honor, Mrs. Thompson is clearly trying to delay these proceedings. I'll allow it, Judge Morrison said. But Mrs. Sullivan, this will take time. Time during which your client is making serious accusations against her husband. We understand, Your Honor. The judge made a note. We'll reconvene in 3 days. That should give the forensic examiner enough time for a preliminary report. 3 days. Rebecca would have to wait 3 more days to prove she wasn't crazy. Outside the courthouse, the October afternoon was bright and cold. Carol Walsh, Rebecca's mother, was waiting by her car. She'd watched Lily during the hearing. 5 years old, was too young to see her parents fight in court. How did it go? Carol asked, though her face said she already knew the answer. Not great. Carol pulled Rebecca into a hug. At 58, she was sturdy and warm and smelled like the vanilla lotion she'd worn for as long as Rebecca could remember. We'll figure this out, sweetheart. He's taking everything, Mom, Lily, the baby, my whole life. And everyone believes him. I don't believe him. You're my mother. You have to say that. Carol pulled back, held Rebecca's face in both hands. Listen to me. I didn't raise a liar or a crazy person. I raised a strong woman who's been systematically broken down by a man who saw an opportunity. But you're still in there, Rebecca, and we're going to prove it. Rebecca wanted to believe her. Wanted to feel that strength her mother insisted was still there. But right now, she just felt tired. Her phone buzzed. A text from Derek. We need to talk about Lily's schedule. She has dance on Tuesday. Like nothing had happened. Like they hadn't just spent the morning in court with him, calling her mentally unstable. Rebecca didn't respond. Turned off her phone instead. Come home with me tonight, Carol said. You and Lily. You shouldn't be alone. I need to be in my own bed, Mom. Then I'll stay with you. I'm not a child. No, you're my child. There's a difference. They compromised. Rebecca would go home, but Carol would check in later, would bring dinner, would make sure Rebecca and Lily were okay. The drive home took 20 minutes through afternoon traffic. Rebecca lived in a neighborhood she'd loved when they'd moved in. Tree-lined streets, good schools, parks within walking distance. Now it felt like a trap. She pulled into the driveway of the house she'd bought with Derek 3 years ago. White colonial, black shutters, a maple tree in the front yard that turned brilliant red every October. The leaves were falling now, carpeting the lawn in crimson. Inside, the house was quiet. Too quiet. Derek wasn't home, probably staying at his mother's. Probably making himself look like the victim who'd been driven from his own home. Rebecca made a cup of decaf tea and sat at the kitchen table. The morning's newspaper was still there, folded to the crossword Derek never finished. A coffee cup with a ring of dried brown at the bottom, his jacket hanging on the back of a chair. Evidence of a life that had felt normal just months ago. Her phone rang. She turned it back on without thinking. Jenna's name on the screen. Hey, Rebecca answered. Grace called me. I'm coming over. Jenna, you don't have to. I'm already in my car. I'll be there in 10 minutes. Rebecca didn't argue. The truth was, she didn't want to be alone. Jenna arrived exactly 10 minutes later with Thai takeout and a bottle of sparkling cider. She'd been Rebecca's best friend since college. Tall, blonde, perpetually optimistic in a way that should have been annoying, but somehow wasn't. Okay, Jenna said, unpacking containers of pad thai and spring rolls. Tell me everything. Rebecca did. All of it. The text messages, Derek's accusations, his mother's testimony, Pierce's opening statement. By the end, she was crying again. The ugly kind of crying, with hiccups and a runny nose. Jenna handed her tissues. I never liked him. You said he was great. At the wedding, you gave a toast about how perfect we were together. I lied. I thought he was controlling and weird about your phone and the way he always needed to know where you were. But you were happy, or I thought you were, so I kept my mouth shut. Rebecca blew her nose. I was happy, or I thought I was. Now I don't know what was real. The baby's real, Lily's real. Your life isn't over, Becca, it's just changing. Into what? I don't know yet, but you're going to survive this. And when it's over, Derek's going to regret ever underestimating you. Rebecca wanted to believe that, wanted to feel that fire, that determination. But right now, she just felt exhausted. They ate Thai food straight from the containers. Jenna talked about her job, about the guy she was seeing, about anything other than the custody hearing. Normal conversation, like they were normal people having a normal Thursday evening. It was almost enough to make Rebecca forget. Almost. The forensic examiner's report arrived on Monday morning. Rebecca sat in Grace's office, hands folded over her belly, while her lawyer read through the technical language. Outside the window, downtown Portland was gray and drizzling. October in Oregon meant rain, meant short days and long nights. Okay, Grace said finally. This is good. This is very good. Rebecca leaned forward. What does it say? It says the text messages were sent from a device that was cloned from your phone. The examiner found evidence of cloning software purchased under Derek's name 3 days after he switched you to his family plan. Relief flooded through Rebecca so fast she felt dizzy. So I can prove I didn't send them? We can prove the messages came from a cloned device. Pierce will argue you could have cloned your own phone, but combined with the purchase records in Derek's name, it's going to be hard for him to explain away. What happens now? We go back to court tomorrow. I present this to the judge. With any luck, this changes everything. Rebecca left Grace's office feeling something she hadn't felt in weeks. Hope. Small, fragile, but there. She picked up Lily from Carol's house. Her daughter came running, all long legs and dark curls. Mama, Grandma made cookies. Rebecca caught her, swung her around. At 5, Lily was getting too big for this, but Rebecca held on anyway. Breathed in the smell of her daughter, chocolate chips, and Carol's vanilla lotion. Did you save me one? 2, I saved you 2. Inside, Carol had indeed made cookies. Chocolate chip, Rebecca's favorite, from the recipe her own grandmother had used. The kitchen smelled like butter and sugar and home. You're smiling, Carol observed. The forensic report came back. Grace thinks we have a real shot now. Carol didn't celebrate, just nodded, cautious. Good, that's good. But Becca, I need to tell you something. The way she said it made Rebecca's stomach drop. What? Derek came by yesterday while you were out. What did he want? To see Lily. Said he had the right as her stepfather. What did you tell him? That he could see her during supervised visits as outlined in the temporary custody order. He wasn't happy. Rebecca could imagine. Derek hated being told no, hated being made to follow rules that inconvenienced him. Did he threaten you? No, but he said things about how you've poisoned me against him, about how when this is over, he'll make sure I never see Lily again. Rebecca's hands clenched. He can't do that. I know, but sweetheart, this man is dangerous, not physically maybe, but emotionally. He's going to try every manipulation tactic he has. I know. Rebecca did know, had been living with it for 3 years, though she'd only recently started to understand what it was. Narcissistic abuse. That's what Jenna had called it. What the therapist Rebecca had secretly started seeing 2 months ago had confirmed. That night, after Lily was asleep, Rebecca lay in bed and let herself remember. Really remember. Not the edited version she'd been telling herself for years. She'd met Derek at a work conference, 2 years after her divorce from Nathan Cross, when she was finally feeling steady on her own. Derek had been charming, attentive, interested in everything she said. He'd listened to her stories about Lily, had laughed at her jokes, had made her feel seen in a way she hadn't felt since the divorce. Their first date, dinner at a nice Italian restaurant, he'd asked about her marriage, her divorce. She'd told him the truth, that she and Nathan had grown apart, that he'd worked too much, that she'd felt like a widow to his ambition. Derek had taken her hand across the table. "I'll never make you feel alone." It had sounded romantic at the time. Looking back now, lying in the dark, Rebecca could see the red flags. The way he'd wanted to see her every night. The way he'd gotten upset when she had plans with Jenna. The way he'd started texting constantly. "Where are you? What are you doing? Who are you with?" She'd thought it was love. Thought he just wanted to be close to her. By the time they'd gotten engaged, 8 months after that first date, Derek knew everything about her. Her passwords, her bank accounts, her schedule, her friends. She'd given it all freely, thinking transparency meant trust. The wedding had been small, just family and close friends. Nathan hadn't come. He'd been out of the country on business. He'd sent a generous gift with a note. "Wishing you all happiness. You deserve it." She'd felt nothing reading it. The divorce had been years ago. They'd grown apart peacefully, had stayed cordial for Lily's sake since Nathan was her godfather. But there was no pain left, no longing. The first year of marriage had been good. Derek had been wonderful with Lily. Patient, playful, present, everything a stepdad should be. The second year, things started to change. Small things at first. Derek commenting on her clothes. "Wasn't that skirt a little short for a mom? Wasn't she a little old for that style?" Suggesting she should spend more time at home, less time with Jenna. After all, Lily needed her mother. Rebecca had tried harder. Dressed more conservatively. Saw Jenna less. Stopped going to her book club because Derek said it was 4 hours away from her family every week. Was that really necessary? By year 3, she barely recognized herself. Quiet, careful, always checking to make sure Derek was happy. Walking on eggshells in her own home. Then she'd found the burner phone. In his gym bag, under a towel, a cheap flip phone with no contacts saved. Just a call log, the same number. Over and over. When she confronted him, Derek had explained it away. Said it was for a surprise party he was planning for her birthday. Said he didn't want her to see the calls to the event planner on their shared phone bill. She'd believed him. Had actually apologized for snooping. There had been no party. 2 weeks later, he'd suggested having another baby. Said it would bring them closer. Said Lily needed a sibling. Rebecca had wanted to wait, but Derek had been persistent, and eventually she'd agreed. They'd started trying. She'd gotten pregnant quickly. Now, lying in bed with that baby kicking inside her, Rebecca understood. The pregnancy wasn't about family. It was about control, about tying her to him permanently, about having leverage. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand, a text from an unknown number. "Tomorrow changes everything. Be ready." Rebecca stared at the message. Who was this? Derek? Someone else? She didn't respond, just set the phone face down and tried to sleep. The next morning, she dressed carefully for court. Navy dress, low heels, minimal makeup. Grace had coached her. Look put together, but not vain. Professional, but maternal. Carol watched Lily again. Jenna met them at the courthouse for moral support. "You've got this," Jenna said, squeezing Rebecca's hand. "The truth is on your side. It's going." Inside, the courtroom felt different. The light seemed sharper, the air more charged. Grace presented the forensic report. Walked the judge through the technical details. The purchase records. The evidence that Derek had cloned Rebecca's phone and sent those threatening messages to himself. Pierce objected repeatedly. Called the evidence circumstantial. Suggested Rebecca could have set this all up herself. But Judge Morrison wasn't buying it. Her expression grew colder with each of Pierce's objections. "Mr. Pierce," she said finally, "are you seriously suggesting that Mrs. Thompson, 6 months pregnant, orchestrated an elaborate scheme to frame her husband by purchasing phone cloning equipment in his name?" "Your Honor, I'm suggesting that my client is the victim here. Your client lied under oath. He presented fabricated evidence to this court. I don't take perjury lightly." Rebecca's heart raced. This was happening. The judge believed her. Pierce scrambled. "Your Honor, if we could have a brief recess to discuss." "Denied. Mr. Thompson, stand up." Derek stood. For the first time, Rebecca saw fear on his face. Real, genuine fear. Mr. Thompson, Judge Morrison said, did you or did you not purchase phone cloning equipment on August 15th of this year? Your Honor, I can't explain. Answer the question, yes or no. Derek's jaw worked. Yes, but did you clone your wife's phone? I needed to protect myself. Yes or no? Yes. The courtroom erupted in whispers. The gallery gasped. Even Pierce looked shocked, like he hadn't known the extent of his client's deception. Rebecca couldn't breathe, couldn't move. This was it. The truth finally spoken out loud. Judge Morrison's gavel cracked. Order, I want order in this courtroom. The whispers died down. Mr. Pierce, does your client have anything else to say? Pierce looked at Derek, who was pale and sweating. Your Honor, we'd like to request. The courtroom doors opened. Everyone turned. A man walked in. Tall, dark-haired, wearing a suit that probably cost more than Rebecca's car. He moved with quiet confidence, like he owned every room he entered. Nathan Cross, Rebecca's ex-husband, the billionaire tech CEO, the man she hadn't spoken to in 3 years. He walked straight to the front of the courtroom. Your Honor, Nathan said, my name is Nathan Cross. I have evidence relevant to this case. The courtroom fell silent. Judge Morrison looked at Nathan over her reading glasses. Mr. Cross, this is highly irregular. You are not a party to these proceedings. I understand, Your Honor, but I have evidence that directly pertains to Mr. Thompson's credibility and Mrs. Thompson's safety. Evidence that was obtained legally and should be considered before any custody decision is made. Derek shot to his feet. What the hell is he doing here? Pierce grabbed his arm, pulled him back down. Your Honor, this is completely inappropriate. I'll decide what's appropriate in my courtroom, Mr. Pierce. Judge Morrison turned back to Nathan. What kind of evidence, Mr. Cross? A comprehensive investigation into Mr. Thompson's activities over the past 3 months, including surveillance footage, financial records, and audio recordings that contradict his testimony. Rebecca stared. Nathan had been investigating Derek? Why? How? Grace leaned over, whispered, did you know about this? Rebecca shook her head. She'd had no idea. Judge Morrison considered. Approach the bench, all of you. Nathan, Pierce, and Grace walked to the judge's bench. Rebecca couldn't hear what they were saying, but she watched Derek's face go from red to white, watched him lean over to whisper frantically to his mother in the gallery. Finally, Judge Morrison waved them back. I'm going to allow Mr. Cross to present his evidence. Mr. Pierce, you'll have the opportunity to cross-examine. But I warn both of you, this court has already seen one instance of fabricated evidence today. I will not tolerate another. Understood, Your Honor, Nathan said. He opened his briefcase, expensive leather, monogrammed, and pulled out a tablet, handed it to the judge's clerk, who set it up on the courtroom's display screen. Your Honor, Nathan began, 3 months ago, I was contacted by Mrs. Thompson's mother, Carol Walsh. She expressed concerns that her daughter was being isolated and manipulated by Mr. Thompson. She asked for my help. Carol. Rebecca turned to look at her mother in the gallery. Carol's face was apologetic but firm. She'd kept this secret, had gone behind Rebecca's back to contact her ex-husband. I hired a private investigation firm, Nathan continued, Legit Security Solutions, based here in Portland. They conducted surveillance on Mr. Thompson over a 12-week period. What they found was disturbing. The screen lit up, surveillance footage. Derek leaving their house at odd hours, meeting with a woman at a coffee shop. The two of them looking at paperwork, talking intently. This woman, Nathan said, is Monica Torres. She's a family law attorney. Mr. Thompson met with her 11 times over 3 months, beginning in July. This was before he filed for custody, before he claimed his wife was unstable. Pierce objected. Your Honor, so my client consulted an attorney. That's not a crime. Let him finish, Mr. Pierce. Nathan advanced to the next slide. Financial records. Mr. Thompson has gambling debts totaling $297,000. He owes money to 3 different casinos and 2 online gambling sites. The debts were incurred over the past 18 months. Rebecca's hands went to her mouth. Gambling. Derek had never mentioned gambling. Mrs. Thompson comes from wealth, Nathan said. Her father left her a trust fund worth approximately $2 million. She also has a family home in Cape Cod worth another $1 million. Mr. Thompson knew about these assets. In fact, he tried to convince Mrs. Thompson to give him power of attorney over the trust fund 6 months ago. "I never gave it to him," Rebecca whispered to Grace. "Why not?" "Something felt wrong. I told him I needed to think about it." Nathan continued. Mr. Thompson's plan was simple: get full custody of both children, Lily and the unborn baby, divorce Mrs. Thompson, claim she's unfit, get spousal support, child support, and eventually access to her trust fund to pay his debts. The screen showed more documents, text messages between Derek and Monica Torres, discussing strategy, how to document Rebecca's supposed instability, how to isolate her from her support system, how to time the custody filing for maximum impact. Derek stood up. "That's bullshit. This is all taken out of context." "Mr. Thompson, sit down or I'll hold you in contempt," Judge Morrison said. "He's manipulating everything. He wants her back. Can't you see that? This is all about him wanting Rebecca back." "Sit down." Derek sat, but his face was purple with rage. The mask had slipped. Everyone in the courtroom could see the real Derek now, angry, desperate, caught. Nathan's voice stayed calm. "Your Honor, I have audio recordings as well, obtained legally in public spaces where there's no expectation of privacy." "May I play them?" "Go ahead." The courtroom filled with Derek's voice, crystal clear, undeniable. "Once the baby's born, we file for full custody of both kids. She'll be postpartum, vulnerable. We paint her as unstable. I get the kids, the house, and 18 years of her trust fund payments." A woman's voice, Monica Torres. "What about the baby? You'll have to take care of an infant." Derek's laugh was cold. "Supervised visitation at best. I'll hire a nanny. The point is control. As long as I have the kids, I have access to her money." Rebecca felt like she was falling. The courtroom spun. Grace's hand steadied her shoulder. Nathan played another recording. The pregnancy was tactical. Makes her look more unstable, hormonal, irrational. The court will side with the stable father. I just need to hold it together a few more months. Monica Torres. And the phone cloning? Derek, perfect. Text messages from her own number, threatening them. Who's going to believe her when she says she didn't send them? She's already questioning her own memory. I've made sure of that. The recording ended. Silence. Then the gallery erupted. Gasps, exclamations. A few people shouting at Derek. Judge Morrison's gavel cracked like thunder. "Order! I will have order, or I will clear this courtroom." Rebecca couldn't process it, couldn't breathe. The baby kicked frantically, responding to her racing heart. Everything Derek had said to her over the past 3 years, every reassurance, every "I love you," every promise, had been a lie. Calculated, strategic. She ran, stood up and ran from the courtroom, Grace calling after her. Into the hallway, past the crowds, to the stairwell. She made it 3 steps down before her legs gave out. She sat hard on the cold concrete, her back against the wall. 6 months pregnant, sitting on courthouse stairs, the whole world crashing down around her. The baby kicked. She put both hands on her belly. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry." Footsteps on the stairs above her. She looked up. Nathan. He stood there for a moment looking down at her. Then he sat beside her, his expensive suit on the dirty stairs. "You shouldn't be sitting on cold concrete," he said. "You're pregnant." "You noticed." Hard to miss. They sat in silence. Rebecca's breathing slowly returned to normal. The baby settled. "Carol called me," Nathan said finally. 2 months ago. Said Derek had isolated you, that you'd stopped answering her calls as much. She was worried." "I didn't know." "I know. She said Derek monitored your phone. She was afraid if she told you, he'd find out and make things worse." Rebecca wiped her eyes. Her mascara was probably everywhere. "Why would you help me? I left you." Nathan was quiet for a long moment. "You left because I worked 80-hour weeks and forgot our anniversary 3 years running. You didn't leave because I was cruel. There's a difference. I was so sure Derek was different. Present, attentive. He was attentive. That's how controllers work. They pay attention to every detail so they can use it later." Rebecca looked at him, really looked at him for the first time in 3 years. He'd aged a little, some gray at his temples, lines around his eyes, but he looked calmer somehow, more settled. "You changed your hair," she said stupidly. "You're pregnant with another man's child." "Yeah. Are you okay?" The question broke something in her. She started crying again, the ugly kind with hiccups and snot. Nathan handed her a pocket square, silk, monogrammed. "I'm pregnant with his child," Rebecca said when she could speak. "I'm tied to him forever now." "No, you're the mother of your children. That's not the same thing as being tied to him. We'll make sure you're protected." "We? I'm not going anywhere, Rebecca. Not until this is over and you're safe." Grace appeared at the top of the stairs. "There you are. The judge wants to reconvene. Derek's lawyer is trying to suppress the recordings." Rebecca let Nathan help her up. His hand was warm and steady. For just a moment, standing there in the stairwell, she felt safe. Then they went back to face Derek. The afternoon session was brutal. Pierce tried everything, claimed the recordings were obtained illegally, argued they were taken out of context, suggested Nathan had doctored them. But the forensic audio expert Nathan had brought testified otherwise. The recordings were authentic, unaltered, and obtained in public spaces with no expectation of privacy. Completely legal. Derek's composure disintegrated by degrees. First, he tried denial. Said he'd been joking with Monica, venting frustrations, not being serious. Then anger. Accused Nathan of orchestrating everything out of jealousy. Said it was all about Rebecca's billionaire ex-husband wanting her back. Finally, desperation. Claimed he loved his family, that he'd made mistakes, but his intentions were good. Judge Morrison wasn't having any of it. "Mr. Thompson," she said, her voice like ice, "you fabricated evidence. You committed perjury in my courtroom. You've admitted to cloning your wife's phone and sending threatening messages to yourself. You've admitted your marriage and second pregnancy were tactical maneuvers designed to access your wife's financial independence and assets. Do you understand the severity of what you've done?" Derek's mouth opened and closed. No words came out. "Your Honor," Pierce said, "my client is clearly emotional." "Your client is clearly a liar and an abuser." "Emotional manipulation is still abuse, Mr. Pierce, and I don't tolerate it in my courtroom." Pierce tried one more time. "We'd like to request a continuance to—" "Denied. In fact, I'm issuing my ruling now." Judge Morrison shuffled papers, made notes. The courtroom held its breath. "Effective immediately, Mrs. Thompson is granted full physical and legal custody of Lily Thompson. Mr. Thompson's parental rights as stepfather are suspended pending criminal investigation into his conduct. He will have no contact with Lily or Mrs. Thompson except through supervised visitation, which will be scheduled at the court's discretion." Rebecca's legs went weak. Grace grabbed her elbow, steadied her. Judge Morrison continued, "I'm issuing a restraining order. Mr. Thompson must stay at least 500 feet from Mrs. Thompson and Lily at all times. He is not to contact Mrs. Thompson directly. All communication will go through attorneys." Derek stood. "You can't do this. I have rights." "You have the right to remain silent, which I suggest you exercise. Mr. Thompson, I'm referring this case to the district attorney's office for criminal prosecution. You may face charges of perjury, fraud, and electronic harassment. I strongly suggest you retain a criminal defense attorney." Pierce looked shell-shocked at Mo. "Your Honor, we're done here. This court is adjourned." The gavel fell. For a moment, nobody moved. Then the courtroom erupted in noise. People talking, exclaiming, reporters rushing to the doors to file their stories. Rebecca stood frozen. It was over. Just like that, it was over. Lily was hers. Derek couldn't touch them. The truth was out. She turned to thank Nathan, but he was already talking to someone on his phone, stepping away for privacy. Grace gathered files, already planning next steps. Carol appeared from the gallery, swept Rebecca into a fierce hug. "Thank God. Thank God." "Mom, why didn't you tell me you called Nathan?" "Because Derek monitored everything, your phone, your computer, probably your car. I couldn't risk him finding out. So I called Nathan from a burner phone, met him in person. He agreed to help immediately." "But why would he?" "Because he's Lily's godfather. Because you were in danger. Because whatever happened between you two, he still cares about your safety." Carol pulled back, held Rebecca's face. And because I begged him, I told him my daughter was being destroyed and I didn't know how to stop it. Tears threatened again, but Rebecca blinked them back. I can't keep crying. Yes, you can. You've earned these tears. Let them come. Jenna pushed through the crowd, wrapped them both in a hug. Holy shit. Did that just happen? I think so. That recording, Derek's voice. What a complete sociopath. Pierce approached, looking defeated. Mrs. Thompson, I want to apologize. I had no idea. You accused me of being mentally unstable. I was representing my client based on the information he provided. I didn't know he'd fabricated evidence. But you didn't question it either. Pierce had no answer to that. He turned and left, probably to figure out how to salvage his reputation after representing a con artist. Derek was escorted out by courthouse security. As he passed, he looked at Rebecca one last time. The charm was gone. The mask had shattered. What was left was just a man who'd gambled and lost. This isn't over, he said. Yeah, Rebecca replied. It is. Outside, the October afternoon was bright and cold. The courthouse steps were crowded with people streaming in and out. Somewhere a siren wailed. Downtown Portland hummed with its usual energy, people rushing to meetings, tourists taking photos, food carts serving lunch. Normal life, continuing like always. Rebecca stood at the top of the steps and breathed. Just breathed. Nathan appeared beside her. Carol's bringing your car around. She'll take you home. I don't know how to thank you. You don't have to. Yes, I do. Nathan, you spent God knows how much money investigating Derek. You hired lawyers, investigators. You took time away from work. Why? He looked at her, really looked at her, the way he used to when they were married, before the work consumed him, before the distance grew. Because Carol called me and said you were in trouble. And your family, Rebecca. That didn't end with our divorce. You're still Lily's mother. Still someone I care about. Even after I left you? Especially after you left me. That was the wake-up call I needed. I hired a COO to run Crosstech's day-to-day operations. Cut my hours in half. Started actually living instead of just working. You leaving taught me something important. What? That success means nothing if you're alone. Carol's car pulled up. A practical Honda sedan, nothing flashy. Rebecca moved toward it, then stopped. Nathan, the baby, is Derek's biological child. I know. When it's born, he'll have parental rights. This isn't over. We'll deal with that when it comes. Right now, focus on today. You won custody of Lily. You proved Derek was lying. That's enough for one day. It was enough, more than enough. Rebecca got in Carol's car. Through the window, she watched Nathan walk to his own car, a black Mercedes, understated but expensive. He drove away without looking back. He's changed, Carol said, pulling into traffic. I noticed. When I called him, he didn't hesitate, didn't ask questions, just said he'd handle it and to keep you safe in the meantime. Rebecca put her hand on her belly. The baby was quiet finally. Maybe it could sense her relief. They drove through the city to Rebecca's neighborhood. The house looked the same as always. White colonial, black shutters, maple tree, dropping red leaves on the lawn. But it felt different now, lighter somehow. Carol parked in the driveway. I'll come in with you, make sure everything's okay. Inside, the house was exactly as Rebecca had left it that morning. Derek's jacket still on the chair, his coffee cup still on the table. Physical evidence of a life that had been a lie. I need to change everything, Rebecca said. The locks, the alarm code, everything. We'll do it tomorrow. Today you rest. But Rebecca couldn't rest. Too much adrenaline, too many emotions. Instead, she cleaned, threw away Derek's coffee cup, hung his jacket in the closet, wiped down the counters, made everything neat and ordered. Control. She needed to feel in control of something. Her phone rang. Grace. Just checking in, her lawyer said. How are you holding up? I'm not sure yet. Still processing. That's normal. Listen, we need to discuss next steps. The criminal investigation, the divorce proceedings, custody arrangements for the baby when it's born. Can it wait until tomorrow? Of course, take tonight. Be with Lily. Process everything. We'll tackle the rest in the morning. After they hung up, Rebecca sat at the kitchen table, the same spot she'd sat that morning, a lifetime ago. Everything had changed, everything. Carol made tea, decaf for the pregnancy. They sat together in comfortable silence, the way they had when Rebecca was a child and the world felt too big. I thought I was going crazy, Rebecca said finally. Derek would say something, then deny saying it, move my things and claim I'd misplaced them. Tell me I was remembering things wrong. I started questioning everything. That's what gaslighting does. It makes you doubt your own reality. How did you know that Derek was dangerous, I mean? Carol sipped her tea. Little things at first. You stopped calling as much. When we did talk, you seemed careful, measuring your words. Then you stopped making plans without checking with Derek first. Stopped mentioning your friends. It was like watching you disappear piece by piece. Why didn't you say something sooner? I tried, remember? 6 months ago, I asked if everything was okay. You said you were fine, just busy with the pregnancy. I pushed harder, and Derek stopped letting you visit me alone. That's when I knew. Rebecca remembered. The Sunday dinner at Carol's. Her mother asking pointed questions about Derek. Rebecca defending him, making excuses. Derek appearing, saying they needed to leave early. The drive home where he'd been silent, angry. Later that night, your mother doesn't respect our marriage. Maybe we should limit contact for a while. She'd agreed, trying to keep the peace. I'm sorry, Rebecca said, for not seeing it sooner. Don't apologize. You survived. That's what matters. They finished their tea as the afternoon light faded. At 3 o'clock, Carol left to pick up Lily from kindergarten. Rebecca was supposed to rest, but sleep seemed impossible. Instead, she went to Lily's room, pink walls with white trim, a bookshelf full of picture books, stuffed animals arranged on the bed, a child's art table by the window, covered in crayons and half-finished drawings, evidence of a childhood that had been protected, even when Rebecca couldn't protect herself. She sat in the small chair at Lily's art table and cried. Really cried, the kind that came from somewhere deep. Relief and grief tangled together. Relief that it was over. Grief for the time she'd lost, the woman she'd been before Derek. When the tears finally stopped, she felt empty, hollow, but clean somehow, like she'd purged something toxic. The front door opened. Lily's voice. Mama, Grandma said we can have pizza for dinner. Rebecca wiped her face, composed herself, went downstairs. Lily launched herself at Rebecca's legs. Did you win, Mama? Are we safe now? Rebecca knelt, awkward with the big belly, and held her daughter. Yes, baby. We're safe now. Does that mean Derek won't live here anymore? That's right. Good. I didn't like him anymore. He was mean when you weren't looking. Rebecca's heart broke. Why didn't you tell me? I did, remember? I said he made me feel bad, but you said he was just tired from work. She had said that, had dismissed Lily's concerns because she was trying to make the marriage work, trying to be a good wife. I'm sorry, Lily. I should have listened better. It's okay, Mama. We're safe now. They ordered pizza, ate it straight from the best while watching one of Lily's favorite movies. Carol left around 7, promising to return in the morning to help with the locks and alarm codes. Bedtime was normal. Bath, pajamas, 3 stories, hugs and kisses. Mama, Lily said from her bed, is Uncle Nathan going to visit us now? Maybe. Would you like that? Yes, he sends good birthday presents. Rebecca laughed. Trust a 5-year-old to remember the important things. Good night, sweetheart. Good night, Mama. I love you. I love you too. Rebecca closed Lily's door and stood in the hallway. The house was quiet, empty, hers. In her own bedroom, she looked at the bed she'd shared with Derek. Tomorrow she'd change the sheets. Maybe get rid of the whole bed, start fresh. Tonight she just needed to sleep. But when she closed her eyes, Derek's voice from the recording played on repeat. The pregnancy was tactical, makes her look more unstable. The baby kicked. Rebecca put her hand there. I know you didn't ask for any of this, but I'm going to protect you. Both of you. I promise. Her phone buzzed. A text from Nathan. Making sure you got home safely. She smiled. Texted back, we're home. Thank you again. His response was immediate. Get some rest. Tomorrow we'll talk about next steps, next steps. There would be a lot of those. The divorce, the criminal charges against Derek, custody arrangements for the baby, financial independence and rebuilding her life. But tonight she'd won, had proven the truth, had gotten Lily back. Tomorrow could wait. Rebecca turned off her phone, turned off the lights, and finally slept. 3 weeks later, Rebecca's life looked completely different. The house had new locks, Derek's things were gone, removed by movers while she and Lily stayed at Carol's. She changed her phone number, her email address, her passwords. Everything that Derek had touched, she'd made new. The divorce papers had been filed. Grace was handling everything, keeping Derek at a distance through attorneys and court orders. He hadn't tried to contact her directly. The restraining order and pending criminal charges probably helped with that. Rebecca woke on a Thursday morning to autumn sunlight streaming through her bedroom window. November 1st. The world was turning toward winter, but she felt like spring. New growth, fresh starts. The baby kicked. Stronger now at 7 months. She'd felt the kicks all night, like the baby was practicing soccer in her womb. Good morning to you too, she said to her belly. Downstairs, Lily was already awake. She'd gotten braver since Derek left, more like her old self, less careful, more loud and chaotic, and wonderfully 5 years old. Mama, can I have waffles? Frozen or homemade? Frozen is faster. Rebecca laughed. Frozen it is. They ate breakfast together at the kitchen table. Lily chattered about school, about her friend Maya who had a loose tooth, about the art project they were doing with the dried leaves. Normal. This was normal. After breakfast, Rebecca drove Lily to kindergarten. The morning drop-off line moved slowly, parents in minivans and SUVs, kids with backpacks almost as big as they were. Have a good day, sweetheart. Bye, Mama. Lily ran toward the school entrance, backpack bouncing. Mrs. Henderson, her teacher, waved from the doorway. Everything was normal, safe, good. Rebecca drove home, taking the long way, past the park where she used to take Lily before Derek had convinced her it was too dangerous. Past the coffee shop where she used to meet Jenna before Derek had said her best friend was a bad influence. She stopped at that coffee shop now, ordered a decaf latte, sat by the window and just existed. Nobody watching her, nobody judging, nobody asking where she'd been and who she'd talked to. Financial independence felt like breathing after holding your breath underwater. Her phone buzzed. A text from Jenna. Lunch today? My treat. Rebecca smiled. 1 o'clock? That new salad place? Perfect. See you there. Simple. Easy. The way friendship was supposed to be. Back home, Rebecca opened her laptop. She hadn't worked in 2 years. Derek had convinced her to quit her graphic design job after the wedding. Said she didn't need to work. That Lily needed her home. She'd believed him, had given up her career, her income, her independence. Now she was rebuilding. She opened her portfolio website, looked at the design she'd created before Derek, before the isolation, before she'd become small and quiet and afraid. The work was good, better than she remembered. She'd had talent, still did. She updated her portfolio, added new contact information, made the site live again. Then she did something she'd been afraid to do. She reached out to her old boss. Hi, Martin. This is Rebecca Walsh. I know it's been 2 years, but I'm returning to work and wanted to see if you have any contract positions available. I understand if you don't, but I thought I'd ask. She hit send before she could second-guess herself. The reply came 10 minutes later. Rebecca, great to hear from you. As it happens, we just lost a designer to maternity leave. Interested in a 6-month contract? Remote work, flexible hours, let me know. Rebecca read the message 3 times. Then she called Jenna. I got a job offer. Jenna screamed, literally screamed loud enough that Rebecca had to hold the phone away from her ear. Oh my God, tell me everything, Rebecca told her. 6-month contract, graphic design work she could do from home. Flexible hours that would work around the baby's schedule. Real money, real work, real independence. This is amazing, Becca. You're rebuilding your whole life. I know, it's terrifying. Terrifying is good. Terrifying means you're growing. They talked for another 20 minutes, Jenna offering advice and encouragement and the kind of unwavering support that real friendship provided. After they hung up, Rebecca accepted the job offer. Her first day would be in 2 weeks, after she'd had time to set up a home office and get organized. She was doing this, actually doing this, rebuilding. At 1 o'clock, she met Jenna for lunch. The new salad place was bright and modern, full of women meeting friends, working on laptops, living their lives, women supporting women. Rebecca felt it like a warm embrace. "You look different," Jenna said, studying her across the table. "Lighter somehow." "I feel lighter, like I've been carrying something heavy for years and finally put it down." They ordered salads, kale and quinoa for Jenna, spinach and chicken for Rebecca. The baby needed protein. "Have you heard from Nathan?" Jenna asked casually, too casually. "He texted a few times, checking in, making sure we're okay." And? And what? And is he still ridiculously attractive and successful and apparently in love with you? "He's not in love with me." "Becca, the man spent God knows how much money investigating your abusive husband and saving you in court like some kind of billionaire knight. If that's not love, that's gratitude to my mother, loyalty to Lily. It's not about me." Jenna gave her a look. "Keep telling yourself that." They ate their salads and talked about everything except Nathan. Work, Lily, the baby, Carol's new book club. Normal conversation between friends who didn't have to perform or pretend. After lunch, Rebecca picked up Lily from school. They went to the grocery store together, Lily riding in the cart and helping by selecting the brightest vegetables. Home again. Homework, writing the letter L, practicing counting to 20. Snack time, apple slice with peanut butter. Playtime, building elaborate structures with blocks. The kind of afternoon Rebecca had dreamed of when things were bad with Derek. Normal, peaceful, theirs. At 5 o'clock, the doorbell rang. Rebecca wasn't expecting anyone. She looked through the peephole. Nathan. She opened the door. He stood on her porch holding paint samples. The kind you got from hardware stores. Probably 20 different shades of yellow. "Hi," he said. "Hi. Your mother mentioned you're painting the nursery this weekend. You shouldn't be around paint fumes. I thought I'd help." "Nathan, I'll do the painting. You can supervise. That's the deal." Rebecca wanted to say no, wanted to insist she could handle it herself. But the truth was, she couldn't. Not 7 months pregnant with a 5-year-old to watch and a house to run. "Okay," she said. "Thank you." Lily appeared behind her. "Uncle Nathan!" She launched herself at him. Nathan caught her, swung her up. "Hey, Lilybug, how's kindergarten?" "Good. I can write my whole name now. Want to see?" "Absolutely." They came inside. Lily dragged Nathan to the kitchen table to show him her homework. Rebecca made coffee, regular for Nathan, decaf for herself. She watched them together. Nathan listening to Lily's chatter with complete attention, asking questions about her day, her friends, her art projects. Present in a way Derek never had been. This was what a father should be, she thought. Not biological necessarily, but present, engaged, safe. "So," Nathan said when Lily ran off to get more drawings to show him, "paint colors." He spread the samples on the table. Every shade of yellow imaginable. Butter, sunshine, lemon, gold. "I was thinking this one," Rebecca said, pointing to a soft yellow. "It's warm, but not too bright." "Good choice. We'll need primer first. The walls are currently that beige color." "We?" "I said I'd help. Besides, I'm good at painting. I painted my first office myself back when Crosstech was just me and 2 other guys in a garage. That was 15 years ago. I remember how to hold a paint roller, Rebecca." She laughed. It felt good, natural. They made plans for Saturday. Nathan would arrive at 9 with supplies. Carol would watch Lily. They'd paint the nursery, the small room next to Rebecca's that would become the baby's space. Nathan left around 6 after Lily had shown him every drawing she'd made in the past month. He ruffled her hair on his way out. "See you Saturday, Lilybug." "Bye, Uncle Nathan. Bring good snacks." After he left, Lily looked at Rebecca. "Is Uncle Nathan going to live here now?" "No, sweetie. He has his own house." "But he could visit more, right? He's nice." "He is nice, and yes, he can visit. Good. That night after Lily was asleep, Rebecca stood in the empty nursery, small room, about 10 by 12 feet, currently beige walls, cream carpet, one window overlooking the backyard. Soon it would be yellow, warm and bright, a space for her son. Yes, son. She'd found out the gender at her last ultrasound. A boy. James, she'd decided to name him. James Michael Walsh. Her father's name. Derek didn't know yet. She hadn't told him. Wouldn't tell him until she had to. The baby was hers right now, just hers. She put her hand on the wall, imagined it yellow. Imagined a crib, a changing table, shelves full of baby books. Imagined herself rocking a newborn at 3 in the morning, exhausted but happy. She could do this. Single mother of 2, working from home, independent. She could do this. Saturday morning arrived bright and cold. November in Portland meant rain, but today the sky was clear and blue. Nathan arrived at 9 exactly, his Mercedes loaded with painting supplies. Drop cloths, primer, paint, rollers, brushes, tape. He'd thought of everything. Carol arrived right behind him to collect Lily. You two have fun. Lily and I are going to the aquarium. Yay, aquarium! Lily grabbed her coat, already running for Carol's car. Then Rebecca and Nathan were alone in the house. It felt strange, intimate in a way that had nothing to do with romance and everything to do with history. They'd been married once, had lived together, had known each other in ways that didn't disappear just because the marriage ended. Okay, Nathan said, all business. Let's see this nursery. Rebecca led him upstairs. The empty room looked smaller with him in it. He moved around the space, checking walls, windows, outlets. We'll do primer first, he said. 2 coats, probably. Then the yellow tomorrow. Tomorrow? Paint takes time, Rebecca. We're doing this right. They spent the morning taping edges, laying down drop cloths, moving furniture. Nathan worked efficiently, his expensive shirt replaced by an old cross-tech t-shirt and jeans. He'd rolled up his sleeves and Rebecca couldn't help noticing he'd stayed in shape. Not gym-obsessed like Derek, but fit, healthy. She looked away. This wasn't about attraction. This was about him helping her paint a nursery. Nothing more. They started with primer, Nathan on the roller, Rebecca on edge work with a small brush. They worked in comfortable silence, broken only by instructions and the sound of rollers on walls. Lily came barreling in around 11, Carol behind her. Mama, we saw otters and jellyfish and a huge shark. Rebecca caught her daughter, careful not to get paint on her. That sounds amazing. Uncle Nathan, can you come see the pictures Grandma took? Nathan set down his roller. Show me. They trooped downstairs. Carol had made sandwiches, turkey and cheese, simple and perfect. They ate lunch around the kitchen table, Lily narrating every detail of the aquarium visit. The seahorse was this big. Lily held her hands about 6 inches apart, and it was yellow like the nursery. The nursery's not yellow yet, Nathan said, with white primer, but tomorrow it will be. Can I help? You can supervise, Rebecca said. Make sure Uncle Nathan and I do a good job. After lunch, Carol took Lily to the park. Rebecca and Nathan returned to painting. The first coat of primer went on smooth. The beige disappeared beneath white. This is good work, Nathan said, inspecting a corner. You've got a steady hand. I used to be a graphic designer. Steady hands came with the territory. Used to be? I quit after marrying Derek. He said I didn't need to work. Nathan's jaw tightened, but he didn't comment, just kept painting. I got a job offer, Rebecca said. Contract work, 6 months, flexible hours. That's great. Congratulations. It's terrifying. I haven't worked in 2 years, and soon I'll have a newborn. What if I can't handle it? Nathan set down his roller, turned to face her. You survived 3 years with a narcissistic abuser. You're raising a daughter who's smart and happy and feels safe with you. You fought for custody and won. You're rebuilding your entire life while 7 months pregnant. If you can handle all that, you can handle a design contract. Rebecca felt tears prickling. Damn hormones. You always knew what to say. No, I didn't. When we were married, I said all the wrong things. Told you work was temporary, that we'd have time later. Told you I needed to focus on the company right now. All the things that slowly eroded us. They stood in the half-painted nursery, paint splattered and honest. I shouldn't have left without fighting harder, Rebecca said. I should have told you how bad things were. I shouldn't have made you fight for my attention. That's not how marriage works. Nathan picked up his roller again. But we're different people now. You're stronger. I'm more present. Maybe we're both exactly where we need to be. They finished the first coat by 3 o'clock, stood back to admire their work. The room was transformed already, bright white instead of dingy beige. Tomorrow morning, Nathan said, 9 o'clock, yellow paint. You don't have to do this. I know. I want to. After he left, Rebecca showered off the paint smell, changed into clean clothes, felt accomplished in a way she hadn't in years. She'd done something, created something, made progress. That night, Lily wanted to see the nursery. They stood in the doorway together, looking at white walls. It's going to be yellow tomorrow, Rebecca said, like sunshine. Will the baby like it? I think so. What do you think? Lily considered this seriously. I think he'll like it. Yellow is a happy color. He? The baby's a boy, right? You said James. Rebecca had forgotten she'd mentioned the name. Yes, it's a boy. Your little brother. Can I teach him things, like how to color and count? Absolutely, you'll be the best big sister. They went downstairs for dinner, spaghetti, Lily's favorite. Afterwards, they built a blanket fort in the living room and watched movies until bedtime. Normal. So beautifully, perfectly normal. Sunday morning, Nathan arrived with the yellow paint and more supplies. Lily appointed herself supervisor, sitting in the hallway with a clipboard Carol had given her. I'm checking your work, Lily announced seriously. We'll do our best, Nathan said, equally serious. The yellow paint went on like sunshine, transformed the room from clinical white to warm and welcoming. Rebecca worked on the edges again while Nathan handled the roller work. By noon, one coat was done. They broke for lunch. Carol arrived with sandwiches again. This was becoming a routine, Rebecca realized. Nathan helping, Carol supporting, Lily supervising. A team, family, not the traditional kind, but family nonetheless. The second coat went faster. By 3 o'clock, the nursery was finished. Soft yellow walls, white trim, cream carpet. Exactly what Rebecca had envisioned. Lily stood in the doorway, clipboard forgotten. It's perfect, Mama. It is, isn't it? Nathan cleaned brushes and rollers in the utility sink, folded drop cloths, packed supplies, efficient and thorough. What do I owe you? Rebecca asked. For the paint and your time? Nothing. Nathan, you owe me nothing. I wanted to help. I'm glad I could. They stood in the yellow nursery, paint-stained and tired, and something else, something that felt like possibility. Thank you, Rebecca said. Really, for everything. You're welcome. He left around 4. Lily waved from the window as he drove away. I like when Uncle Nathan visits, she said. Me too, Rebecca admitted. Me too. That week fell into a new rhythm. Rebecca started her contract work, logo designs for a new restaurant, branding materials for a startup. She worked at the kitchen table while Lily was at school, the baby-kicking reminder that time was running out. 2 months until her due date, Nathan texted every few days, checking in, asking how the work was going, whether she needed anything. She didn't need anything, but she appreciated the asking. Friday evening, her phone rang, Nathan's name on the screen. Hi, she answered. I've been thinking, he said. When's the last time you went out? To dinner as an adult without talking about custody or Derek or anything stressful? Rebecca thought. Couldn't remember. Months. Would you want to? Get dinner, I mean. Just us. Not as a thank you or an obligation. Just dinner. Her heart did something complicated. Like a date? If you want it to be, or just dinner between friends who used to be married. Whatever you're comfortable with. Rebecca looked around her kitchen, at Lily's drawings on the refrigerator, at the house she'd reclaimed, at the life she was rebuilding. Friday next week, she said, my mother can watch the kids. A pause, then, it's a date, I'll pick you up at 7. After they hung up, Rebecca sat at the kitchen table and processed what she'd just agreed to. A date with Nathan, her ex-husband, the father of exactly 0 of her children, but somehow essential to their safety. This was complicated, messy, probably a terrible idea. She couldn't wait. The week leading up to the date felt endless. Rebecca worked on her design projects, took care of Lily, prepared the nursery. Normal life except for the constant awareness that Friday was coming. She told Jenna, who screamed again, "I knew it. I knew you two would figure it out." "We're not figuring anything out. It's just dinner. With your ex-husband, who saved you in court and painted your nursery and apparently never stopped caring about you." "Sure, just dinner." Rebecca laughed. "You're impossible." "I'm right, you'll see." She didn't tell Carol immediately, but her mother figured it out anyway. Mothers always did. "You're nervous about something," Carol observed Thursday evening, watching Rebecca try on 3 different maternity dresses. "I'm not nervous." "You're 7 months pregnant and trying on clothes like you're going to prom. What's happening Friday?" "Dinner with Nathan." Carol's face did something between surprise and satisfaction. "A date? Maybe, I don't know, yes?" "Good. That man has been hovering around like a patient guardian angel for weeks. About time you both acknowledged it." "Mom, I'm pregnant with another man's child. My divorce isn't even final. This is completely inappropriate." "This is life, sweetheart, messy and complicated and not on anyone's schedule. If you want to have dinner with Nathan, have dinner with Nathan." Friday arrived. Rebecca spent the day working and trying not to watch the clock. By 6 o'clock, she'd changed outfits 4 times and redone her makeup twice. Lily watched this process with fascination. "You look pretty, Mama." "Thank you, sweetie." "Is this for Uncle Nathan?" "Yes." "Are you going on a date?" Rebecca sat on her bed, awkward with the belly. Lily climbed up beside her. "Would that be okay with you? If Uncle Nathan and I were friends who sometimes went on dates?" Lily thought about this seriously. "Will he be nice to you?" "He's always nice to me." "Then it's okay. Derek was mean. Uncle Nathan is nice." The simple childhood logic was perfect. Rebecca hugged her daughter. "You're very wise, you know that?" "I know." Carol arrived at 6:30 to watch Lily. She shooed Rebecca out of the bedroom. "Go finish getting ready. Stop overthinking." Nathan arrived at 7 exactly. Rebecca opened the door to find him in dark jeans and a button-down shirt, dressy but not formal. "Perfect." "Hi," he said. "Hi. You look beautiful." She did a small spin, showing off the deep blue maternity dress she had finally settled on. "Even with the enormous belly?" "Especially with the enormous belly. You're growing a human. That's pretty incredible." In the living room, Lily gave Nathan a serious look. "You have to be nice to my mama." "I promise. And bring her home before midnight like Cinderella." Nathan smiled. "I'll have her home by 10. How's that?" "Acceptable." Rebecca kissed Lily goodbye, waved to Carol, and followed Nathan to his car. He opened her door, the kind of old-fashioned gesture Derek had called outdated. They drove to a restaurant on the waterfront, not fancy enough to feel like pressure, but nice enough to feel special. The hostess led them to a table by the window overlooking the Willamette River. "This is perfect," Rebecca said. "I called ahead, made sure they could accommodate." They ordered salmon for her, steak for him. The conversation started carefully, both of them navigating unfamiliar territory. "How's the new contract work going?" Nathan asked. "Good, really good, actually. It feels amazing to be using my brain again, creating things, being more than just a mother and wife." "You were never just anything, but I'm glad you were working again." They talked about her projects, his company, neutral topics that felt safe. The food arrived. Rebecca ate slowly, savoring flavors she'd forgotten to notice during the Derek years. The salmon was perfectly cooked, the vegetables crisp and bright. "I've been thinking," Nathan said halfway through dinner, "about what happened between us, why we divorced." Rebecca set down her fork. "Okay. I was wrong about a lot of things. I thought building the company was building our future. Thought if I could just get Crosstech to a certain point, then I'd have time for us. But there's always another goal, another milestone. I chose work over you, over and over, until you had enough. I could have communicated better, could have told you how serious things were instead of just leaving. You did tell me, I didn't listen. I'm listening now." The sincerity in his voice made Rebecca's chest tight. "What changed?" You leaving? It was the wake-up call I needed. I hired a COO. It promoted my VP of operations, built a team I could trust, cut my hours from 80 a week to 40, started seeing a therapist. You're in therapy? Have been for 2 years. Turns out workaholic tendencies are often about control and fear. Who knew? Rebecca laughed. I've been seeing someone too, started 2 months before the custody hearing. She's the one who identified Derek's behavior as narcissistic abuse. How do you feel about all that now, the Derek situation? Relieved it's over, angry it happened, grateful I got out before it got worse, terrified about what having his child means for my future. Nathan reached across the table, took her hand. Whatever happens with the baby, you're not alone. Carol's there, Jenna's there. I'm there. Why are you there, Nathan, really? We've been divorced 3 years. You don't owe me anything. He didn't let go of her hand. Because seeing you in that courtroom, pregnant and scared and fighting for your daughter, reminded me why I fell in love with you in the first place. Your strength, your determination, your refusal to give up even when everything's falling apart. Rebecca's breath caught. Nathan, I'm not asking for anything, he said quickly, not trying to pressure you. You're still dealing with Derek, still rebuilding your life. I just wanted you to know. I never stopped caring about you. Even when we were divorced, even when we weren't talking. I never stopped. The river flowed past the window. The restaurant hummed with other conversations, other lives. Rebecca looked at their hands, his larger, steadier, hers smaller, trembling slightly. I left you because you worked too much, she said slowly. I married Derek because he was available, attentive, present. I thought I'd learned what I needed in a partner. But I was wrong. Presence without kindness is just surveillance. Attention without respect is just control. And now I'm 7 months pregnant with my abusive ex-husband's child. I'm still finalizing a divorce. I'm still building financial independence and figuring out how to be a single mother of two. Now is complicated. I'm good with complicated. Are you? Because this isn't a fairy tale. Derek will have parental rights to James. I'll be co-parenting with someone who tried to destroy me. That's my reality. Then that's my reality too, if you let me be part of your life. Rebecca pulled her hand back gently. I need to think about what I want, what Lily needs, what's best for James. I can't make decisions right now based on feelings. I did that with Derek, and look how that turned out. That's fair. Take all the time you need. They finished dinner talking about easier things, Lily's school, the upcoming holidays, Carol's book club. By the time dessert arrived, chocolate cake they shared, the tension had eased. Nathan drove her home at 9:30, parked in her driveway and walked her to the door. Thank you, Rebecca said, for dinner and for being honest. Thank you for coming and for listening. An awkward moment. Should they hug, shake hands? This was uncharted territory. Nathan solved it by kissing her forehead. Gentle, brief, friendly. Good night, Rebecca. Good night, Nathan. Inside, Carol was reading on the couch, Lily asleep upstairs. How was it? Carol asked. Complicated, honest, good. That's a start. Rebecca collapsed on the couch beside her mother. He said he never stopped caring about me. Of course he didn't. Anyone with eyes could see that. But I'm pregnant with Derek's baby. How does that work? However you want it to work. There's no rule book for this, Becca. You figure it out as you go. That night, lying in bed with the baby doing gymnastics in her belly, Rebecca thought about what she wanted. Not what she should want, not what made sense, but what she actually wanted. She wanted safety, wanted kindness, wanted someone who showed up not because they had to, but because they wanted to. She wanted what Nathan had been offering since the moment he walked into that courtroom. But wanting something and being ready for it were different things. The baby kicked hard, like punctuation. James Michael Walsh, her son, due in 8 weeks, she had time to figure this out. Not much time, but some. Tomorrow she'd call Grace and check on the divorce proceedings, would work on her design projects, would take Lily to the park, would keep building this new life piece by piece. Tonight she'd just rest. November became December. Portland rain turned constant. Gray skies settling in for winter. Rebecca's belly grew enormous. 8 months pregnant now. James seemed to have run out of room, pushing against her ribs, making breathing difficult. The design work continued. She'd finished the first contract and been offered another. 6 more months, different client. Her portfolio was filling with new projects. Proof that she was still good at this. Still valuable. Derek's criminal trial was set for January. Grace was handling everything, keeping him at a distance. The divorce would be final in February. Rebecca was counting down days. Nathan visited weekly, sometimes with Lily, taking her to the aquarium, the science museum, the park, sometimes alone, bringing dinner, helping with house projects, just talking. They hadn't discussed the date again, hadn't talked about feelings or future, just existed in this comfortable space between friendship and something more. Then, 2 days before Christmas, Derek's lawyer called. "Mrs. Thompson, this is Richard Patterson. I'm representing Derek Thompson in the custody matter regarding your unborn child." Rebecca sat down hard at the kitchen table. "What custody matter?" "Mr. Thompson is filing for joint custody of his biological son immediately upon birth. We'll need to establish a visitation schedule, possibly supervised initially given the circumstances. He's facing criminal charges, which are being resolved. Mr. Thompson is pleading guilty to lesser charges, misdemeanor fraud and electronic harassment. He'll pay fines and complete probation. He'll be able to petition for unsupervised visitation within 6 months." Rebecca felt like she was drowning. "When is this hearing?" "January 15th, 3 weeks after your due date. We assume the baby will be born by then." After the call, Rebecca sat staring at nothing. She'd known this was coming, had known Derek would have rights to James, but knowing and facing it were different things. Her phone rang. "Grace, I heard. Patterson just called me too." "What do I do?" "We fight. We present Derek's history, the abuse, the fraud. We argue for supervised visitation only. But Rebecca, he is the biological father. Unless we can prove he's actively dangerous, he'll get some custody. So my son will have to spend time with the man who tried to destroy me. Not alone, not at first, and not for long periods. But yes, some contact is unavoidable." Rebecca wanted to scream, wanted to rage against the unfairness, but she just sat there, 8 months pregnant and tired, and so done with all of this. She called Nathan. He arrived 30 minutes later, in the middle of a workday, still in his suit, found Rebecca sitting in the nursery, the yellow room with the empty crib that suddenly felt like a promise that couldn't be kept. "Derek's lawyer called," she said. "He's filing for custody of James." Nathan sat beside her on the floor. "Tell me everything." She did. The hearing date, the plea deal, the likelihood of Derek getting supervised visitation rights. "I thought it was over," Rebecca said. "I thought winning custody of Lily meant I was safe. But it's never over, is it? He's always going to be there, always going to have access to my life through James." "Not to your life," Nathan said. "To James's life. There's a difference." "How? How do I co-parent with someone who tried to take everything from me?" "You do it through lawyers and mediators. You do supervised handoffs at neutral locations. You document everything. You protect yourself and James while allowing Derek his legal rights as a father. And what happens when James is old enough to ask why his father doesn't live with us? Why his father hurt me?" Nathan took her hand. "You tell him the truth in age-appropriate ways. You teach him what healthy relationships look like. You make sure he knows what happened to you wasn't your fault and that you're strong enough to handle it." Rebecca leaned against Nathan's shoulder, let herself be held. The baby kicked, strong, insistent. "James keeps kicking," she said, "like he's trying to tell me something. Probably that he's running out of room. 3 weeks until my due date. 3 weeks until Derek gets to meet his son. I hate this." "I know." They sat in the yellow nursery until Lily came home from Carol's. Then they put on brave faces and made dinner together. Chicken and rice, Lily's favorite. That night, after Lily was asleep, Nathan stayed. They sat on the couch, Rebecca's feet in his lap, while he rubbed them. Pregnancy had made her ankles swell. "I've been thinking," Nathan said, "about the custody situation, about what you need. I need Derek to disappear. Not an option. No, but you need support. Someone who can be at those supervised visits with you. Someone who can help with handoffs and make sure you're never alone with him. Carol does that. I want to do it, if you'll let me. Rebecca looked at him. Why would you want that? Because you shouldn't have to face him alone. Because James is going to be part of your life, which means he's part of my life if I'm in yours, because I want to help. Nathan, we haven't even talked about what this is between us. You can't commit to co-parenting my abusive ex's child when we're not even technically dating. Can I? It's too much. I can't ask that of you. You're not asking. I'm offering. And before you say it's too complicated or too much or too whatever, complicated is just life, Rebecca. It's not a reason to walk away from people you care about. She wanted to argue, wanted to insist he was being ridiculous. But the truth was, the idea of having Nathan there during Derek's visits made everything seem more bearable. I'll think about it, she said finally. That's all I ask. Christmas came. Rebecca hosted a small gathering. Carol, Jenna, Lily, Nathan. They ate too much food, opened presents, watched Lily's excitement over every gift. Nathan gave Lily a giant stuffed unicorn, gave Carol a first edition book from her favorite author, gave Rebecca a professional camera for documenting the baby's first year. I know you like photography. Rebecca gave him a framed photo, Lily and Nathan at the aquarium, both laughing at something. She'd taken it on one of their outings. The joy on both their faces was undeniable. Thank you, Nathan said softly. That night, after everyone left and Lily was asleep, Rebecca sat in the rocking chair in the yellow nursery. 1 week until her due date. The baby had dropped, settling low. Ready. She put her hands on her enormous belly. Hi, James. Your life is going to be complicated, kid. You've got a father who made mistakes and a mother who's doing her best. You've got a big sister who's excited to meet you. And you've got people who love you already. Grandma, Uncle Nathan, Aunt Jenna. We're going to protect you, I promise. The baby kicked, gentler now. Less room to move. Rebecca's phone buzzed. Nathan, thank you for today. Thank you. Merry Christmas. She smiled, texted back, thank you for being here. Merry Christmas. His response? Always. New Year's came. Rebecca was 9 days overdue, miserable and enormous, and so ready to not be pregnant anymore. She tried everything. Long walks, spicy food, pineapple. Nothing worked. James was staying put. January 3rd at 2 in the morning, her water broke. The contractions started immediately, hard and fast. This wasn't like Lily's leisurely labor. This was urgent. Rebecca called Carol, who arrived in 15 minutes to stay with Lily. Called Grace to let her know the baby was coming. Called Nathan. I'm on my way, he said. Don't leave without me. Nathan, you don't have to. I'm already in my car. See you in 10 minutes. He arrived in 8, helped her into his car, her hospital bag already packed and waiting, drove through the dark, empty streets to the hospital while Rebecca breathed through contractions. You're okay, he said. You've got this. It hurts. I know, but you're strong, strongest person I know. At the hospital, they checked Rebecca in quickly. She was already 6 centimeters dilated. This baby wasn't waiting. Nathan stayed, held her hand through contractions, let her squeeze until his fingers turned white, reminded her to breathe. You don't have to stay, Rebecca said between contractions. I'm not going anywhere. 4 hours later, at 6:30 in the morning on January 3rd, James Michael Walsh was born. 7 pounds, 9 ounces, dark hair like his mother, healthy and perfect and screaming his lungs out. The nurse placed him on Rebecca's chest, warm and wet in hers. Hi, baby, Rebecca whispered. I've been waiting to meet you. James stopped crying, opened his eyes, dark blue, unfocused, looking for his mother's voice. Rebecca looked up to find Nathan watching with tears in his eyes. You did it, he said. He's beautiful. Do you want to hold him? Are you sure? I'm sure. Nathan took James carefully like he was made of glass. The baby settled against his chest, small fist curling around Nathan's finger. Hey, James, I'm Nathan. I'm Nathan. The words he didn't say hung in the air. Not your father, not your uncle, just Nathan. But watching them together, Rebecca saw the truth. Biology didn't make a father. Presence did. Love did. Showing up did. Nathan had been showing up for months. For her, for Lily, now for James. That was what mattered. The first week with James was exhausting. Newborns didn't sleep, didn't follow schedules, didn't care that their mother was recovering from childbirth. But Rebecca had help. Carol came every day, cooking meals and entertaining Lily. Jenna stopped by with coffee and encouragement. Nathan visited each evening after work, holding James so Rebecca could shower or nap or just breathe. "You don't have to keep coming," Rebecca said on day 5, watching Nathan rock James at 2 in the morning. "I want to. Besides, you need sleep." "So do you. You have work tomorrow." "Work can wait. You need help right now." Lily was obsessed with her baby brother, wanted to hold him constantly, sing to him, show him all her toys. Rebecca had worried about jealousy, but Lily just seemed delighted. "He's so small, Mama." "Was I that small?" "You were, and just as perfect." Derek's custody hearing was in 2 weeks. The reality loomed. Soon Derek would meet James, would have visitation rights, would be part of their lives whether Rebecca wanted it or not. Grace came to the house to prepare Rebecca for the hearing. "Derek's lawyer is going to argue for generous visitation," Grace said, "starting with supervised visits twice a week, escalating to unsupervised within 6 months. Can we fight it? We can argue for longer supervision period. We can require completed therapy and anger management. But Rebecca, he's the biological father and he's taken a plea deal. Unless you can have he's a danger to James specifically, the court will grant him access." Rebecca held James closer. He was nursing, his small hand on her chest. So innocent, so completely unaware of the complicated world he'd been born into. "When does he meet James?" "No, the hearing is January 15th. If the judge grants visitation, first visit will likely be within days, supervised, in a neutral location." After Grace left, Rebecca sat in the nursery and cried. Hormones, exhaustion, fear, all of it tangled together. Nathan found her there when he arrived that evening. "I have to let Derek meet him," Rebecca said. "Have to hand my baby to the man who tried to destroy me and pretend it's fine." Nathan sat beside her, "But you don't have to pretend it's fine. You just have to survive it. And you will, because you're stronger than Derek ever gave you credit for." "What if Derek tries to take him? What if he runs?" "He won't. He's on probation, being monitored. He'd lose everything. And Rebecca, for all his faults, Derek isn't violent. He's manipulative and cruel, but he's not going to physically harm James." "How do you know?" "Because his entire strategy was about image, about looking like the good father. Harming his own child would destroy that image. Derek cares about perception more than anything." It wasn't comforting, exactly, but it was logical. And right now, Rebecca needed logical. The hearing arrived too quickly. Carol watched the kids, Lily and newborn James. Rebecca went to court with Grace, Nathan by her side for moral support. Derek looked different, thinner, tired. He'd clearly had a rough few months. His lawyer presented their case. Derek had completed anger management, was in therapy, had paid all fines and restitution. He was ready to be a father to his son. Grace presented their counter-argument. Derek's history of manipulation and abuse, the systematic isolation of Rebecca, the fabricated evidence, the recorded admissions of using the pregnancy as a tactical move. Judge Morrison listened to both sides. Then she made her ruling. "Mr. Thompson, I find your past behavior deeply concerning. However, you are this child's biological father, and you've taken steps to address your issues. I'm granting supervised visitation twice a week for 2 hours at the Portland Family Justice Center. These visits will be supervised by a court-appointed monitor. After 3 months, we'll review and potentially move to unsupervised visits." Derek's face showed relief. Rebecca felt sick. "Mrs. Thompson," the judge continued, "I understand your concerns. The court will ensure that all visits are monitored and that James's safety is paramount. If at any point Mr. Thompson violates the terms of his probation or exhibits concerning behavior, visitation will be suspended immediately." It wasn't what Rebecca wanted, but it could have been worse. Outside the courthouse, Derek approached. Nathan stepped between them immediately. I just want to say thank you, Derek said, looking past Nathan to Rebecca, for giving me a chance to know my son. This wasn't my choice, Rebecca said coldly. This is the law. Don't mistake legal obligation for forgiveness. I know I hurt you. I know I don't deserve. You don't. You tried to take my daughter. You used my pregnancy against me. You systematically destroyed my sense of reality. If I never have to see you again, it'll be too soon. But James deserves to know his father, so I'll follow the court order. That's all. Derek's face flickered. Anger, shame, something else. I've changed. Good. Prove it by being a decent father. That's all I ask. They left him standing there. The first supervised visit was scheduled for that Friday. Rebecca spent the days leading up to it alternating between anxiety and rage. I can come with you, Nathan offered. Just be there in the waiting room. You don't have to do that. I want to, for you and for James. Friday arrived. Rebecca dressed James in a simple onesie, blue with little elephants. Nothing special. She wasn't dressing her son up for Derek. Nathan drove them to the Family Justice Center, a neutral building designed for exactly this purpose, supervised exchanges between parents who couldn't be trusted alone together. Inside, a monitor named Patricia explained the rules. Derek would have 2 hours. He could hold James, feed him if needed, change his diaper. No photos without Rebecca's permission. No discussing Rebecca or the case. Are you ready? Patricia asked. No, but let's do it anyway. Nathan squeezed her hand. I'll be right here. Rebecca carried James into the supervised visitation room. Derek was already there sitting at a small table. He stood when they entered. Hi, he said softly. Rebecca didn't respond. Just placed James's diaper bag on the table and stepped back. Derek approached slowly. Looked down at James in Rebecca's arms. He's beautiful. He looks like me, Rebecca said, not to be mean, just stating fact. He does. Can I hold him? Rebecca wanted to say no, wanted to grab her son and run, but the monitor was watching and this was court-ordered. She handed James to Derek. Derek took him carefully, supporting his head. James made a small sound, not crying, just awareness that he'd been moved. Hi, James, I'm your dad. The words made Rebecca's stomach turn, but she stayed silent, watching. Derek sat with James, just holding him, talking softly about nothing. The weather, how much James had grown already, how he had his mother's nose. The 2 hours crawled by. Rebecca sat in the corner, watching every interaction. Patricia took notes, documenting everything. Finally, time was up. Thank you, Derek said, handing James back to Rebecca, for letting me meet him. I didn't let you. The court ordered it. Don't forget the difference. Outside, Nathan was waiting. He took the diaper bag, walked with Rebecca to the car. How was it? Awful, but he didn't do anything wrong, just held James and talked to him. It was very normal, and I hated every second. That's a reasonable response. At home, Rebecca nursed James and cried. The hormones, the stress, the unfairness of it all. But she survived it. Would survive the next visit and the next, because that's what mothers did. They survived for their children. 3 months passed. James grew from a sleepy newborn to an alert baby who smiled and cooed and grabbed at everything. Lily was the world's best big sister, always ready to help, always making James laugh. Derek's supervised visits continued. Twice a week, 2 hours. He showed up on time, followed the rules, behaved appropriately. It was maddening in its normalcy. Rebecca's design work flourished. She'd taken on 3 more clients, was building a real business from home. Financial independence felt like breathing. The divorce was final in February. Rebecca Walsh again, not Thompson, never Thompson again. Nathan was there through all of it, not as a boyfriend exactly. They still hadn't defined what this was, but as a constant presence, helping with the kids, bringing dinner, fixing things around the house. One evening in early April after the kids were asleep, Rebecca and Nathan sat on her back porch. Spring had arrived, trees blooming, air warm. I've been thinking, Rebecca said, about us. Okay. When we were married, I left because you worked too much. You weren't present. I felt alone even when you were there. I know, I'm sorry for that. Let me finish. I left you and married Derek because he was attentive and available. I thought presence meant love, but Derek's presence was surveillance. His attention was control. And now? Rebecca looked at him. Now I understand the difference. You've been present for months, helping with the kids, supporting me, just being here. But you've never controlled me, never demanded anything, never made me feel small. I learned from my mistakes. So did I. I learned that choosing someone because they're different from your ex doesn't mean choosing right. I learned that attention without respect is dangerous. I learned that I'd rather be alone than be with someone who diminishes me. Are you saying I'm not alone? Haven't been, because you've been here, consistently, quietly, without asking for credit or recognition. That's love, Nathan. Not the dramatic kind from movies. The real kind. The showing up kind. Nathan took her hand. I fell in love with you twice. Once when we were young and building a life together. Again watching you fight for your children and rebuild everything Derek tried to destroy. I don't need you to love me back. I just need you to know I'm here. For as long as you'll have me. What if I said I do love you? That I probably never stopped, even when we were divorced. That I just needed time to figure out what love actually means. Then I'd ask if you want to try this again. Dating, I mean, taking it slow, seeing if we can build something better than what we had before. I have 2 kids. One of them isn't yours. I have 2 goddaughters now, Lily and James. Biology doesn't matter. Derek will always be part of our lives through James. Then we deal with Derek together. Rebecca looked at their hands, intertwined, comfortable. I'm terrified. What if we mess this up again? Then we mess it up and figure it out. But Rebecca, we're here. See, Jack, we're different people now. I'm not working 80 hours a week. You're not trying to make yourself small to fit someone else's expectations. We've both grown. Maybe that's enough. What about the kids? Lily adores you, but James will grow up seeing me as someone who loves his mother and sister, who shows up and helps and treats everyone with respect. That's not nothing. It wasn't nothing. It was everything. Okay, Rebecca said. Let's try this, slowly, with full communication and no repeating old patterns. Deal. Nathan kissed her, soft and sweet and full of promise. A beginning, not an ending. Inside, one of the kids cried, probably James, hungry again. Rebecca pulled away with a smile. Duty calls. I'll come with you. They went inside together. Nathan heated a bottle while Rebecca picked up James from his crib. Lily appeared in her pajamas, hair wild from sleep. Why is everyone awake? James was hungry. Want to help feed him? Lily climbed onto the couch beside Nathan. Rebecca handed James to Nathan, who held him while Lily helped hold the bottle. A family picture that looked nothing like traditional, but felt exactly right. Rebecca watched them, her daughter, her son, the man who kept showing up. This wasn't the life she'd planned. Wasn't the neat, tidy story of divorce, recovery, remarriage. This was complicated, messy, real. Derek would come pick up James tomorrow for his now unsupervised visit. Rebecca would hand her son to his father and trust the court's judgment. Would spend those 4 hours anxious and checking her phone. Would breathe easier when Derek returned James safely. That was her reality. Not fair, not easy, but manageable. Because she had support, had family, had people who loved her and her children without conditions. Mama, Lily said, can Uncle Nathan come to my school concert next week? Of course he can. And to James's first birthday? And to everything, Lilybug, Nathan said. I'll be at everything. Later, after the kids were back in bed and Nathan had left, Rebecca stood in the yellow nursery, the room she'd painted months ago when everything was falling apart. James slept in his crib, peaceful and safe. In her own room, Lily dreamed whatever 5-year-olds dreamed about. Rebecca's phone buzzed, a text from Nathan. Thank you for tonight, for letting me in again. She smiled. Texted back, thank you for waiting, for being patient, for showing up. His response, always. Rebecca looked around her house, the home she'd reclaimed, the life she'd rebuilt, the children she'd protected. She'd survived Derek's abuse, had fought for custody and won, had proven his lies and exposed his manipulation, had rebuilt her career and her confidence and her sense of self. Someone had asked her once if she regretted her choices. The answer was complicated. She didn't regret leaving Nathan the first time. They'd both needed to grow. Didn't regret meeting Derek because that relationship taught her what abuse looked like, taught her to trust her instincts, gave her James. She regretted not seeing Derek's true nature sooner, regretted the time she'd lost, the damage he'd done. But regret and experience weren't the same thing. Every mistake had taught her something. Every painful moment had made her stronger. Every bad choice had led her back to this, a home full of children she loved, a career she'd rebuilt, and a second chance with a man who'd learned from his mistakes as she'd learned from hers. That wasn't a consolation prize. That was a gift. Rebecca checked on both kids one more time. Lily sprawled in her bed, stuffed unicorn clutched tight. James in his crib, hands in tiny fists above his head. Safe. Both of them safe. She went to her own room, changed into pajamas, climbed into bed that was hers alone, but wouldn't always be. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Derek's visit, work deadlines, the constant juggle of single motherhood, the slow, careful rebuilding of a relationship with Nathan. But tonight, she could rest, could close her eyes knowing her children were protected, knowing she'd survived, knowing she was strong enough for whatever came next. The thing about second chances was that they didn't erase the past. They just gave you the opportunity to make better choices with what you'd learned. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes, that was everything. Rebecca smiled in the dark and let sleep take her. Tomorrow would come soon enough. For now, she was exactly where she needed to be. Home, safe, whole, free. The story that had started in a courtroom with lies and manipulation had ended here, in a quiet house with sleeping children and the promise of morning. Not a perfect ending, but a real one. And real was always better than perfect.